Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, literally tectonic shift happening in education right now. We're looking at how ed tech is completely reshaping English language teaching, or ELT, specifically over in Bangladesh. And honestly, Bangladesh is a totally fascinating case study for this. Why? Because it's a high-stakes contrast. You've got this rapid, super enthusiastic tech adoption crashing headfirst into deep infrastructural hurdles. It's basically a pressure cooker for innovation. So let's just dive right in.
But before we get into the weeds of software and classroom setups, I really want you to think about something for a second. Can an app ever truly replace a human teacher? It's kind of a provocative question, right? And as AI and all these digital tools get wildly sophisticated, well, that question gets a whole lot harder to answer. So keep that thought tucked in the back of your mind as we unpack the incredible promises and, frankly, the very real pitfalls of the digital learning landscape we're building today.
Okay, Section 1. The ed tech paradigm shift. We're talking about the big move from transmission to constructivism.
So historically, classrooms leaned heavily on what we call a teacher-centered transmission approach. You definitely know the scene. A teacher stands at the front writing on a blackboard while students sit in isolated rows just memorizing things. Basically, they're passive receptacles for information. But today, virtual learning environments like Moodle or Canvas are fundamentally pushing us toward learner-centered constructivism. That means students aren't just passively receiving knowledge anymore, they're actively building it. They're guiding their own studying, and they're forming extended communities to debate and collaborate way after the traditional 50-minute class period is over. And why does this matter so much? Well, it actually goes all the way back to a famous theory by Lev Vygotsky. He argued that learning is a socially mediated process. In plain English, we learn best when we bounce ideas off of each other. That's exactly why a digital discussion board isn't just some generic comment section. It's a shared virtual space where learners scaffold each other's knowledge. They challenge one another, collaborate, and ultimately hit a level of understanding together that they literally couldn't reach on their own.
Moving on to Section 2, Tools for Active Learning. Let's look at how we're actually engaging the modern learner in practice.
Picture the thrill of a countdown timer in a trivia game. The music's pumping, there's friendly competition. Gamification platforms like Kahoot or Quizzes do something practically magical for language learners. They lower what linguists call the affective filter. Think of that filter as an emotional wall built totally out of anxiety. Gamification sneaks past that wall. It eliminates the paralyzing fear of looking foolish in front of your peers. By masking the learning behind a really immersive environment, these tools trigger a highly motivating flow state. Suddenly, you're not stressing over grammar rules, you're just trying to win the game. And that provides a fantastic organic context for task-based learning.
Now, another massive shift is the flipped classroom. This approach completely flips the traditional script. Instead of wasting valuable class time just sitting and listening to a lecture and then struggling with homework all alone at night, students actually watch the lecture at home. They can pause, rewind, and digest the material at their own pace. And this simple tweak, it's a total game changer. It transforms scarce face-to-face class time into a dynamic laboratory. That time is now entirely dedicated to active application, collaborative problem-solving, and actual spoken communication with the teacher right there to guide them.
Let's walk through a real-world example to see why this seamless loop is so incredibly effective. Let's say for an advanced house school essay class. Step 1 happens at home. The student watches a customized video from their teacher and takes a quick automated quiz just to check their basic understanding. Then, Step 2 brings them into the classroom or a live synchronous session, where they immediately jump into breakout rooms. They're using digital whiteboards to collaboratively map out essay outlines with their peers. Finally, Step 3 sends them back home to draft their essay directly into a text editor for process-based peer review. It's this continuous, highly interactive loop where the student is always engaged, never just passively listening.
But hey, it's not all seamless success. Let's shift to a more cautionary note in Section 3, Scaffolds versus Prosthetics. We really need to talk about the danger of hollow learning.
So here is the crucial reality check. When we hand students these unbelievably powerful digital tools, are we giving them cognitive scaffolds or lexical prosthetics? Think of a scaffold like training wheels on a bicycle. It assists your brain, it lowers the cognitive load, but it absolutely still demands your effort, your balance, and your active evaluation to keep moving forward. A prosthetic in this context? That's like having someone else ride the bike for you entirely. It happens when students rely on passive copy-pasting or instantly generating text with AI translations. They fall into what's known as the declarative trap. They let the machine do all the heavy lifting, and it results in this dangerous illusion of competence, where, honestly, nothing is actually learned.
There's a brilliant academic concept for this called the involvement load hypothesis. It states that true vocabulary retention depends entirely on the cognitive effort exerted through need, search, and evaluation. And I want to challenge your own habits for a second. Think about the last time you came across a foreign word. Did you quickly Google a direct translation and immediately forget it 5 minutes later? Or did you actively search a dictionary, evaluate its context in a sentence, and actually try to use it? You see, the brain needs to sweat a little. That cognitive friction is exactly where the actual learning takes root.
Check out this lesson progression. It perfectly illustrates how an educator can force a student to exert that necessary cognitive effort instead of just acting like a human copy-paste machine. Step 1 gently familiarizes the student with new words using a gamified app. But Step 2 turns up the heat. Students must actively search an online corpus dictionary to see how the word is used in real-world contexts. No snagging a direct translation allowed. Finally, Step 3 has them applying that hard-won knowledge by publishing original narratives on a class blog. It is literally a masterclass in making students actively evaluate and create with language.
Section 4. Bridging the digital divide. The stark reality on the ground. Because we absolutely cannot talk about the wonders of technology in Bangladesh without directly facing the immense socioeconomic barriers there.
Paint a picture in your mind of a highly connected urban university experience. We're talking high-bandwidth fiber optics, reliable personal laptops, smartboards in every room, seamless Zoom calls. Now, starkly contrast that with the reality of rural public schools. Students and teachers there are battling frequent load shedding, which are rolling power outages. They face astronomical mobile data costs and severely limited tech hardware. I mean, an interactive web platform is practically useless if you don't have electricity to power the router, right? Educators in these environments have to rely on entirely different offline strategies just to survive.
And the number 2 is genuinely terrifying in this context. It represents the very real threat of a two-tiered education system. If we obsess over high-end ed tech but ignore the digital divide, we create a massive chasm. We end up violating the very educational principles we're trying to promote, basically leaving rural, underfunded public school students completely stranded without the global digital competencies their urban peers are mastering.
But humans are incredibly resilient, and this remarkable micro-story really proves it. In the face of power outages and zero internet, look at this brilliant low-tech lesson plan crafted by a creative teacher. Step 1. An entire classroom crowds around a single battery-powered laptop to watch a downloaded offline video. Step 2. They decode the transcripts using physical offline paper dictionaries. Step 3. They text a 2-sentence English summary to their teacher using basic 2G SMS mobile messaging. It is just an extraordinary use of absolute bare-bones technology to facilitate networked collaborative writing against all odds. Which brings us to Section 5, the climax of our explainer, the human element. Why pedagogy always trumps technology. The researcher Stephen Bax talks about a really fascinating concept called normalization. He argues that technology is only truly effective when it becomes invisible and deeply integrated into daily practice. Think about it. We don't look at a pen or a whiteboard and gasp at the technology, right? It's just a tool we use to communicate. Digital tools need to reach that exact same seamless level. We have to avoid tech for tech's sake at all costs. If a flashy app doesn't serve the underlying human learning experience, it's completely useless. And that means the success of this entire digital revolution rests squarely on the shoulders of well-trained educators. The modern techno teacher is fundamentally different. First off, they shift from being the sage on the stage, the grand lecturer holding all the answers, to the guide on the side, actively mentoring students as they discover answers for themselves. They master something called TPAC. In simple terms, it means they don't just know their subject, they know how to teach it, and exactly which specific tech tool will make that lesson land perfectly. They actively teach cyber safety, and vitally, they use software to track a student's drafting process over time, assessing genuine step-by-step learning to combat AI cheating. They're confident orchestrators, never intimidated by the software.
Ultimately, as we've seen throughout this journey, technology is not a replacement for an educator. It's a powerful scaffold that absolutely requires human guidance to foster true, meaningful connection. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to reflect on today. If the ultimate goal of learning a new language is to connect with other humans, how will you ensure that the screens in your educational life are building bridges to other people, rather than simply acting as walls? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.